Hey, what's happening everyone? Welcome back to the channel. My name is Ryan, and today we're going to be talking about the 35mm focal length and why this might be the optimal choice if you're looking to invest in your first lens. So today we're going to be talking about 35mm and why I feel like this might be the best lens if you're looking to do multiple types of work. First off, I want to say that I'm going to be mostly showing you a lot of B-roll and examples from my Sony 35mm 1.8 lens. Sony didn't sponsor this video. I bought this lens with my own money and I've been really happy with it over the years that I've had it. Okay, so let's get into it. There are many different focal lengths that you could choose from, and if you're feeling a bit overwhelmed on which one you should choose, the first thing you need to ask yourself is, what are your filmmaking needs? If you are a YouTuber, a vlogger, TV commercials, or you're looking to make your first short film, there are a lot of reasons why I feel like the 35mm is your best option. I do see a lot of advice about getting a zoom lens, and although I do agree with that, a lot of zoom lenses, if you're looking to get a decent one, can be pretty pricey. Even the Sony, the 24-70, for example, you could pick that up from Amazon or B&H for around $1,700. And if budget is one of the hurdles that you're trying to get through and you just want to get started with something decent, I do recommend a prime lens. And I have a video coming out on zooms versus primes here fairly soon, so make sure to stay tuned and subscribed so that you can learn more about that. I recommend getting a prime lens, and this is because there isn't as much for the lens to be thinking through because it's only one focal length. With a zoom lens, it has all the different focal lengths to focus on, which makes it more complicated to make, which in turn makes it more money. But there are plenty of really great prime lenses out there for a really great price. I'm using the Sony 35mm 1.8 lens, and right now on Amazon it's going for about $750 US. But because I wanted to gear this video around those who are looking to invest in their first lens and are having a hard time narrowing it down to one, I think that this might be the best way to go because you can get so many different looks and so many different uses out of this one focal length. Let me explain. Again, it goes right back to what are your needs. If you are a vlogger and a filmmaker making short films, narrative films, or you're shooting client work like TV commercials and corporate videos, the 35mm might be the way to go, and here's why. Let's start with the vlog. You probably want something a little bit wider so you can hold it at an arm's length so that you can see your face and your surroundings in the one shot. Ideally, you probably want something like a 24mm. However, the wider your lens gets, the more distorted it looks. Here's what I mean by this. So the 35mm lens would be what you would call a wide angle lens, and it's called that because, well, you get a wider point of view, which is nice for when you're trying to get a lot of things into the frame. However, with a wider point of view also comes lens distortion. This is filmed with my GoPro, something that's used as more of like an action cams, but when you do shoot this way, you start to see that curve, and you could even see it in my finger too as I'm going this way, and that starts to look a little unnatural. So now I'm still on my GoPro, and this is a linear shot. This is the same exact shot on the same exact camera, but without a super wide angle view. You could totally see the difference. Here's a side-by-side of both the super wide view and a more linear view. And that's basically what distortion is. So if I were to put this on my face, you could see how distorted that could look, especially when I get really close. It'll start to look a little funky. I'm sure my nose looks a little weird. This is an example of what you don't want. But with the 35mm, you hardly get any distortion at all, and it still has a really great shallow depth of field. I've worked with so many different types of lenses on many different projects, and I always end up reaching for the 35mm. It really is my favorite focal length, and in my opinion, it just really hits that sweet spot when trying to make one lens work for multiple different types of videos. You really only want to use it for a specific look. However, with the 35mm, for me it works. I don't really mind it that much, but if you're looking for a wider shot, you might want to look into a 24mm if you're only using it to vlog. But if you are a vlogger making short films, narrative films, and even commercial work, the 35mm might be the way to go. I've used my 35mm for all of my narrative films and for most of my client work. For me, I really love the way that the 35mm looks. It's a very film-like, cinematic kind of look, and if you're pairing it with something like the FX3 or any kind of cinema camera, you're gonna really get a great look out of this. It's also great for getting into tight spaces, getting the entire scene without getting too much distortion. So now that we've talked about why I feel like the 35mm might be the best choice if you're looking to invest in your first lens, let's talk about some alternatives. One is the 24mm. As we were just talking about in the beginning, for a vlogging setup, this would be the best way to go. And there have been a lot of films that have been done on the 24mm. It's actually a focal length that I do enjoy. The con is that it could be a bit distorted, especially the closer you get to your subject, but it does work in tight spaces if you're doing real estate cinematography or anything like that. Another great alternative, the Sigma 18-35. And if you do need a zoom lens, this is probably the way to go. Because it goes all the way to 35, you could shoot those film-like cinematic scenes and also switch it around and vlog with that as well at the 18 or 24mm range. The Sigma 18-35 also goes down to 1.8 when it comes to low light shooting. And this lens is going for about $600, $650 US on Amazon right now. So not a bad price either. So here are some of the cons to this lens. Number one, this one's made by Sigma, which means it's not native to your camera. Native meaning that it wasn't made by the same company. A lot of the cameras are a lot better these days, but you might have some trouble with autofocus. The other downside to this lens versus the fixed focal length is that it's just big and it's heavy. And when you're vlogging with it, which I used to vlog with my GH5 with this lens, it got really heavy, and it even got a little too heavy for some of my GorillaPods. But with all of that said, it's a really great lens at a really great price, and you're gonna get a great image quality from this as well, from both of these options. So I guess in a nutshell, what I'm trying to say is if you're a vlogger or you're a filmmaker or you do TV commercials and client work, then the 35mm might be the sweet spot for you. There are a lot of really great wide angle lenses out there that have very little distortion. The lenses that are coming out these days are amazing, but if you're looking for that really wide cinematic look that comes with a 35mm and you're also a vlogger, then this might be the way to go. For me personally, I love the 35mm lens. It's gotten me through a lot of different projects, and this was the only lens I had for my Sony cameras for the longest time. One of the things about camera gear is that things are changing all the time, and there's always a better camera that's gonna come out, but lenses are gonna last you forever, and so investing in the right lens is important. So that's it, guys, just a quick video on why I feel like the 35mm is the best way to go if you're looking to invest in your first lens. If you like this video, or if you learned something, please press the like button and consider subscribing if you haven't already, and we'll see you in the next one. Peace.